Hello, I'm Roberta Russell. I'd like to welcome you to Lifetalk, which is a program that started in 1995 featuring leaders in the world of research, in the vanguard, the cutting edge. And Dr. Proietto is, as far as I'm concerned, way ahead of anything going on in weight loss, even though the whole field is coming together to give us a great deal more knowledge. And he's a Professor Emeritus at the University of Melbourne. He's received an award in Australia for the most important researcher in obesity research. He's also a doctor, an endocrinologist, and a PhD researcher. So he qualified both by his clinical skills and experience with patients. He's quite compassionate. So he sees things in a different way, very biologically. And it's really been an eye-opener for me. He is the head of the weight control clinic at Austin Health. And he is the clinical care committee, chair of the clinical care committee on world obesity, and a past president of the Australian and New Zealand Obesity Society called ANZOS. So I'm proud to present Dr. Proietto. Thank you for being here on the other side of the world. Well, when people lose weight, they tend to gain it. Almost everybody gains it back within 5 years. Is that correct? And what are the statistics and what are the reasons?
That's the evidence that's been published, and it's well known. And as you can see, we're not making much of an impact on the obesity epidemic. And the reason why that it occurs and why everybody, nearly everybody, not everybody, but nearly everybody regains weight is that the body defends weight at a genetic level, so that we have circulating hormones that regulate hunger. And following weight loss, and you only need to lose a small amount of weight before this goes into place, the levels of these hormones change all in a direction to make the individual hungrier.
Has this been known for a long time?
Sorry?
Has this been known for a long time about these 10 hormones?
Oh, the 10 hormones have been known for 30, 40 years. And then in 2011, we published a paper in the New England showing that these changes in the hormones that lead to increased hunger seem to be long-lasting. At first, we had evidence at 12 months following weight loss. And then in another study that we did looking at the rate of weight loss where we followed people for 3 years, we found that leptin level was still lower and ghrelin level, the hunger hormone ghrelin, was still higher 3 years after weight loss. And more recently, it's been shown from the United States that energy expenditure is still lower and leptin levels are still lower 6 years after weight loss. So the body doesn't really forget and never gives up trying to get us back to our previous.
Well, it's no wonder the problem is so recalcitrant. People think Correct. It's their fault, that it's a failure of will.
No, it's not will, because...
And you have brought in the biology of it, takes away the blame.
Correct.
You don't feel blamed, you're more in a position to do something about it.
Well, now that we know that this is happening, we can do something about it, yes.
So what can be done and how would it be done?
Well, the first thing we have to do is to warn our patients that this is happening and this is the reason why most of them regain weight, firstly. Secondly, we need to give them strategies, lifestyle strategies to help them keep the weight off, such as monitoring their weight on a weekly basis at least, recording their weight, and if they start to go up, to take evasive action, to diet again, to lose those few pounds that they regain. And that works for some people long term, and but for that to work, the individual has to have a life that is well balanced, calm, peaceful, and has the energy to be able to focus on their weight, to be able to keep it off.
Eliminates most
other,
right?
yes, well, not a minority of people. The majority
Can do it.
had more complicated lives, and and even those who'd succeed, if something dreadful happens in their life and they get distracted because of some bereavement or something and look the other way, the biology never forgets and takes them back to where they were. So in my view, we need to address the issue of increased hunger.
Yeah, well, people don't realize that now they are a different biological person than they were before they lost the weight. And
that's right.
I lost a weight from 189 pounds ultimately to 110, but it takes a great deal of strategies, what you're talking about, for me. And
yes.
People who learn that they can do something. I have a little group that just started with the new advent of Zoom. So we're meeting and sharing strategies. And your information has come up, and we're trying. I can see I'm trying more. I was vegan before, and now I'm trying animal proteins and fewer carbs, and weight has come off without any special effort, just doing that. So
yes.
Is it true that if you don't eat carbs, you go into ketosis? And what is ketosis? I mean, it's also relative. I don't mean no carbs. I mean fewer.
Yes. Yes. You see, the body burns 3 predominant fuels, and then the 4th one is alcohol. But if we ignore alcohol, the body burns glucose first, fat second, and protein last of all. If we deprive the body of carbohydrate, which is bread, pasta, rice, potatoes, legumes, these things get all digested to glucose in the gut, and then it's absorbed, and fructose, of course. It's absorbed and stored as glycogen in our muscles and liver. Now, if you decrease your carbohydrate intake significantly, the body initially burns the stored sugar, but within 3 days, that's all used up. And then it has to burn fat. Now, we know that when the liver is burning fat at a fast rate, it produces ketones, which are breakdown products of fat burning.
Uh-huh. So you only produce, I'm sorry, do you only produce ketones if you're burning a lot of fat, or you produce it?
Yes.
Oh, I see.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes. The ketones then circulate in the blood, and the patient who has the ketones knows that they have them because they can smell it on the breath. Mm-hmm. The breath smells of acetone. This is because ketones are volatile. They evaporate very easily, so we breathe them out. But they work on the brain to suppress hunger via a biochemical mechanism that we understand. And we discovered that they also stop ghrelin, the hunger hormone, from rising, and cholecystokinin from dropping.
Wow, so that's 3 hormones. Yeah.
Well, yes, probably more as well. I don't know that there's evidence that the ketones stop leptin from falling, but at least the ketones control some of the hormones, so that most of my patients tell me that they're comfortable when they're in a mildly ketotic state.
So that's the question I have, mildly ketotic. It's not an on-off switch. Is it true that when you burn fat, that means you're in a negative calorie balance?
Yeah.
If you burn fat, is that ketotic to some degree? Are there degrees of this? That's what I'm wondering.
Well, there are degrees of ketosis. Well, when it's really, really ramped up and this is seen in patients who lack insulin, who develop what's called ketoacidosis. Mm-hmm. But there the levels are extremely high, and that's not a healthy state to be in. Mm-hmm. Diabetic ketoacidosis is dangerous. But when we induce ketosis with our diet, it's only mild elevation of ketones.
I see. So
So,
that answers some of the criticism.
well, yes, but you see, ketones have a bad reputation, but indeed, in the past, our ancestors were very often ketotic because if you think about it, most of our carbohydrate comes from agriculture, whether it's wheat or rice. And agriculture is only 10,000 years old. Our ancestors had to wait until the trees developed fruit
using fat
to get some carbohydrates. And so they would have been frequently ketotic. And the fact that ketosis evolved to suppress hunger probably was some biological mechanism to make the individual more comfortable as they looked for food.
I see, but you know what?
Rather than starving.
Rather than starving. What
I like to tell my patients that this evolved to stop us eating our neighbour.
Well, you know what? I have been thinking about how do I get all the vitamins that I need from fruits and vegetables while still being ketotic if I want to lose weight. But from what you're saying, it doesn't seem that that's impossible. As long as you have a calorie deficit, you can eat all of that, because that's what I'm doing. I'm eating lots of steamed vegetables and fruit, but I lose weight and I'm not hungry. But I'm not eating the starches so much.
No, yes, there are no essential starches because our liver can make glucose. So you can fast for 40 days and 40 nights and your glucose level will never drop below normal.
Wow.
Because the liver has a very powerful mechanism called gluconeogenesis, that it can convert glycerol and amino acids into glucose for the brain. So, we don't, there are no essential carbs. In terms of the other nutrients, when I give my patients the diet that is ketogenic, we also combine it with either shakes and bars that here in Australia we call OptiFast, OptiSlim. There are quite a few products here.
Yeah, too.
That have the full range of nutrients, including all of the rare metals that we need. And so the patients have replaced 2 meals with with one of these meal replacements that gives them all the nutrients. And then they have a meal in the evening, which is protein and non-starchy vegetables and salads.
So they never stop eating natural foods with your plan.
Correct. You have at least 1 meal a day that is a full plate.
So you are getting the benefits, but mitigating the dangers.
Correct.
Everything you do with the drugs too. But one of the things that I thought was interesting, a lot of people think they're doing intermittent fasting to lose weight. And I always thought, well, it's the calories, but you put that to the test. It doesn't mean.
Well, there are at least 2 or 3 studies that have randomized studies that have compared intermittent fasting with continuous fasting. The dietitians in my hospital involved me in their study of one of these among returned soldiers in our repatriation hospital, and all of them have shown that the weight losses are the same. But intermittent fasting suits some people's lifestyle well, and there's no reason not to do intermittent fasting. So the way you lose weight is not essential. Most of the patients that come to me have a history of having lost a lot of weight beforehand, but having regained. So the issue with weight management is not losing it, it's actually keeping it off that's hard. For the reasons we discussed already.
And some people think that the composition of the foods is the answer if they were on the Atkins diet. But it turns out that that's not the answer in terms of long-term weight loss. What would you say you've discovered about that?
No, the Atkins diet was ketogenic because it was high fat, but you don't need to eat a lot of fat to become ketotic. And in fact, logically, you want to burn your own fat rather than the fat that you eat to induce ketosis. Why eat fat when you're trying to get rid of your own fat? You
I
just
know,
got to
amazing. But nobody
avoid
seems to have thought of
carbohydrate.
that. Why did nobody
Yeah,
think that? I mean, nobody seems to know. I don't know anybody, and I didn't know that if you have you don't have to eat fat to become ketonic,
correct.
or even that
You,
there were grades of it, so that you can lose weight eating healthy food with a calorie deficit. But if you don't stuff yourself on carbs, which are the first thing to be burned,
yeah,
and you won't go
correct.
to ketosis. So that's so intermittent fasting. You can do it if you want.
Sure.
It's not going to change the calorie burn. The hour you
No.
eat, the composition you eat is not going to change it either, right? You have discovered that?
No, no. There was a study published in the New England Journal by not us, a group in the United States
Uh-huh.
that looked at different compositions of the macronutrients. So they had high carb, high fat, low fat, high protein, low protein, and they showed that in those controlled ways, controlled studies, the weight losses were the same. So the macronutrient balance doesn't impact on weight. It's the total energy that you take in that's relevant. And because they were in a controlled way, all of them had the same energy deficit, and therefore all of them lost the same
Now
weight.
that is the biggest mythbuster. That
Yes,
you pointed that study out to me when you helped me with writing my report on
yes,
weight loss by Frank Sears, and
yes, correct.
no, it
Yes,
seems it was very well done, that study.
yes, yes,
People who are selling cures, their own package, I don't seem to be very interested in finding out about it because it belies their message.
correct.
Yeah, amazing that you did that. And then it was
Yeah,
in the Times, and really, uh,
yeah.
I was amazed to find that out. So the other myth, about gradual weight loss. Everybody I know has always believed that if you lose weight slowly, it's better because you don't gain it as fast. I also thought because you get better habits, you learn habits, but it turns out that it's not true. So what is true? Yeah,
We broke that myth
you did.
in a study we did in 2014 that we published in 2014. The regain was exactly the same, whether you lost weight rapidly or gradually. But more people succeeded in the rapid program because it was ketogenic compared to the gradual program.
Right. So that's so exciting. So I thought, well, boy, why couldn't I recommend that? Not what I was afraid of is that it's not healthy because I've always been told it's not healthy, but it doesn't have to be high fat. So it could be
No,
healthy.
yeah,
And if you could swing it with food, if you could control your food calories, you wouldn't have to have liquid protein. But if it would help you if you were very heavy, I've tried liquid protein, but when I tried it and I was obese, I found I was alleviated, no hunger. I would watch people eat, blissed out, and things that would have tempted me. I could focus on the conversation, but it wore off. You acclimate to the drug. It turned out to be dangerous. It was phentermine. You can have heart valve problems. So what's different now with drugs? Because if you don't get a behavioral change, and a person is in trouble with regain, you offer drugs, right? And not just any old drugs.
no, we now have some drugs that we can use, some in combination. We have a combination of bupropion and naltrexone. A combination in America, you have a combination of topiramate and phentermine. We have the individual drugs, and then of course we have analogues of glucagon-like peptide 1, GLP-1 analogues. And the best of these is probably semaglutide, which has just come onto the market.
What is
And
that mechanism? How does that work?
semaglutide, how does it work? Because glucagon-like peptide 1 is one of the hormones that our gut releases after we eat. And I like to say that it does everything except wash the dishes.
Really?
It, it,
What do you mean by
it,
that?
it stimulates insulin secretion,
Mhm.
and suppresses glucagon, but only if your sugar is high. If
Wow.
your sugar is not high, it doesn't stimulate insulin secretion. Hence, you can give analogues of GLP-1 to people without diabetes without the risk of causing a low blood sugar.
Wow, it's getting more and more refined.
Then GLP-1 then slows the emptying of the stomach, so it makes you feel fuller for longer.
Wow.
And then it goes into the brain and suppresses hunger through multiple receptors all over the brain.
It's a full service drug.
Yes, and the reason why semaglutide is a good is because when you inject it, it's one injection a week instead of an injection a day, and it's one of our own hormones.
Do they have that in America too?
Yes, it will be in America, semaglutide. In America, you've also got the oral version of the hormone.
So it's one of our own hormones. So we have that naturally.
One of our own hormones.
Just
So
what we have naturally.
correct.
So
yes.
what I'm thinking of is you've pointed out, and uniquely so, that all of the 10 hormones act in concert to bring us back to a heavier weight. And
Correct.
you have after you lose weight, the leptin, which is prevents, but when you have a low leptin, you eat a lot. So that if you took a little bit of leptin, technically you'd be correcting an imbalance that was created by your weight loss. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
So it's also, you say...
It's my view that we've only got one at the moment. We're replacing GLP-1, but we need to replace leptin and amylin probably. So we have a hormone from the pancreas, one from the gut, and one from fat combined together to then inject once a week, or even better, once a month. When we have 3 hormones that we can administer, then we will have conquered obesity, I think.
Wow. Well, if you think of it as a deficit that you have now after you lose weight, your biochemistry is changed, right?
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
changed for a long time, not just for 6 months. It's changed unless you gain the weight back.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Correct.
gain the weight back, you're back to where you were. But so if you don't want to gain the weight back and your biochemistry has changed, if you take a drug, how long can you take the drug safely? The drugs that you're talking about, do you have any idea? Because you're talking about life, right?
Yes, it's for life.
Yeah.
So if it is for life, you can say that on first principles, the best medication would be to replace some of the hormones that go down after weight loss.
Seems natural, like thyroid.
So, and that's more physiological, right?
Yes.
And for those people who are needle phobic, then we have to ask the question, how safe are the other drugs for long-term use? In the trials, for most of them, we only have two-year data on long-term safety. So both the combination of topiramate and phentermine and bupropion and naltrexone, those 2 that are both available in the US, have been tested for a 2-year continuous use.
So it's possible that you could use these for much longer, but no one knows for sure. But the things that, one of the things I like your opinion on is, I haven't resorted to that, although frankly, if I could do it safely, like as I do with thyroid, my thyroid is too low naturally. I take a supplement. I never even think about my blood is tested. I only take what I need. So potentially you're talking about hormones that affect weight that could be treated in the same way. If that could work, it would solve a lot of problems. But until it works, or for those who want to try to do this through their life circumstances, you need extraordinary motivation to take care of this behaviorally. You need the time, you need the resources, you need the being calm enough, feeling satisfied with yourself enough, not going off the rail. So I was thinking when therapy works, psychotherapy, it works because of the primary predictive ingredient of a good therapy, good outcome, is the feeling of alliance that the patient feels with the doctor. And it doesn't have a lot to do with the training or the method or the cost. The feeling of alliance. We're herd animals, we want to belong. And that gives us meaning. Meaning itself is therapeutic. So I'm trying to use what I learned from both. So I share what I learned from you and what I learned in general with a few people. And then for some reason, even though they were doing it just with me, once they have more than one person, a group, it's a different ballgame. They're all trying. One is doing intermittent. I mean, they're trying new things because the meaning is increased. We now belong to other people who we may wind up caring about. I do, because I know them a long time. So that to me is what do you think about the potential of that? Or not excluding drugs if you need them, but if you're not massively obese and you're just overweight like most people, well, most people, again, most people are overweight, not just obese, but most people are overweight or obese. 72% in America, which is a hotspot with all the problems. So what do you think about that as a prospect?
Well, yes, I think it's very important to have those lifestyle approaches as well, because you can't just rely on the medication. What we have at the moment is not potent enough anyway. So you need a combination of both the lifestyle approach, what you do with the psychological approach of having a buddy, for example, a partner someone else who's going through the same struggle as you, of monitoring the weight carefully, of going back on the diet if you gain a little bit, of continuous, constant monitoring and vigilance is all very important. And both need to be done, I think, in my view.
Me too. And I think in this age of Zoom, where we don't have the middleman for a lot of stuff, we can talk directly. We don't have to be at a big conference. People can reach each other. I think that there's the potential for that, with drugs or without, sharing with other human beings. I think it's incredible where it can go from here. I think it's a powerful force, meaning. So I'm very grateful to you. I'm delighted to share Dr. Joseph Proietto with you and look forward to the next session we're going to have, which will be how to use a lot of what he has said and share it with your friends. Stay tuned.